In today's video, we'll be taking a look at servicing a Kuma wood stove door. I'll show you how to remove and replace the door gasket, how to remove and replace the glass and the glass gasket. I'll also go over some tips on cleaning and restoring the door finish. I'm out here in the middle of the Kuma Stoves warehouse, so I apologize if there's an echo here in the video. Let me get this door out of the way and I'll bring some tools up here to show you that you're going to need for servicing the door. You're going to need 5/8 round rope gasket. You'll need 3/4 inch self-adhesive window channel. You're going to want a Phillips screwdriver, number 2 size, a medium-sized flat blade screwdriver. You're going to need gasket cement, specifically for fiberglass to metal. You're going to want some glass cleaner, stove specific, and you're going to want a roll of paper towels. To replace the door gasket, you'll start by taking that flat blade screwdriver and pry down in one of the bottom corners, and you should be able to loosen up the gasket from the glue, and then just give it a pull and it should come out there all the way around. It'll leave a little bit of gasket fiber in there, but we're also going to take this screwdriver and kind of scrape that out. Set that aside. Now you want to get in here and just scrape at that gasket glue that's remaining and make sure that there's no significant amount of gasket glue left in the door. Next, you'll want to take the gasket cement and apply a small bead all the way around the door channel. You don't want to use too much. It really only takes a small amount to keep the gasket in place. I'm going to use a caulking tube and just put that bead right in here. If you miss any spots, you just go back in and give them a little bit. Take the gasket and start to press it into the channel down here near the bottom corner, and just press it in. Don't stretch the gasket or bunch the gasket up as you place it in. And as you go, push it down to make sure it's embedding in that glue. When you get to the corner, you want to take the screwdriver and make sure to force the gasket back into the corner so that it doesn't ride up on the door frame. And then just press that side down. Again, careful attention at the corners to make sure that this gasket doesn't get up on top of the frame. If it gets up on top of the frame, then it will cut when it smashes against the door face. Again, pressing it down as you go, making sure it gets embedded into that glue. When you get to the end, you'll need to take some scissors and cut it off. It's one of the tools that you need that I forgot to mention. Just cut that off. And then take that flat blade screwdriver and start to press these frayed ends into the channel. You don't have to get them all. Just get most of them in there so that the gasket doesn't start to unravel. Couple little strays. All right, I had to make that look harder than it really is. Make sure that it's well seated. Push it down. Make sure the gasket has kind of an even height all the way around. Once it's in, you can move it a little bit by forcing it one way or the other to make sure it's even all the way around. And that is a replaced gasket. In order to replace the glass or the glass gasket, you need to get these 7 screws out of this glass retaining ring. Take a number 2 Phillips screwdriver to get those screws out. To get the screws out, you could actually also use a drill with a Phillips bit on it, and then just take these out here one at a time, no particular order. Dropped one. Now this door here was a demo door. It was on a stove for only a couple of fires. And so this glass gasket might actually still be good. But once your stove has had years worth of fires, the glass gasket will be, its adhesive will have burned off, and the gasket will just more or less fall off of the glass. See what happens here on this one. So the adhesive is still good on this. If your door was older, this would be more like a white color and it would just fall right off of there. To replace the glass gasket, you want to start in one of the corners and peel off about 6 or 8 inches of the adhesive. And you want to stick that right down to the middle of the glass. I'm sorry, the glass edge will need to hit right into the middle of the gasket, because this gasket is going to stick to the edge and then it's going to wrap over to cover both sides. And so just one side at a time, peel enough of the paper off, get it stuck right to the middle, and then carefully wrap it over slowly on both sides. Just work it over both sides, and that'll make sure that there's enough gasket on both sides of the glass to contact the inside of the door as well as the retaining ring. And you want to take scissors, and when you cut this off, you want to make sure you cut it just a little bit short, if anything. You don't want the gasket overlapping on the ends. If it overlaps on the ends, it's going to create a kind of a high spot that when you tighten the glass retainer back down could cause some uneven pressure on the glass, and we don't want that to happen. To get the glass back in the door, just slide it under the handle side and then let it set down inside of all these screw locations. Make sure that it's not riding up on top of one of those, because that can cause uneven pressure that can break the glass. So once you know it's sitting down carefully and correctly, set the retaining ring on top there. Take your screwdriver and your screws and just start starting the screws. Get each one of them in. You can move around a little bit to make sure that the holes are aligning for you. You want to get this glass tight enough that it won't move in the door. So if I take this and I can move it, you can just grab it from both sides, and you probably can't see in the video, but it's moving a little bit. So I'm going to take then and go around and give each one of these screws a little bit more pressure. And you can jump around here a little bit, kind of in a pattern so that not all the pressure happens at one time. You can press down on the glass holder a little bit. Just push down on that, you'll see a gap appear. And then if you tighten the screw down to the gap, you'll have it just about right. Then check that glass one more time and make sure it's not moving around in there. And I just noticed I put the glass in backwards. So this door is only going to say Kuma from the inside. What we didn't cover here is how to replace the glass if it's broken. The procedure is much the same, with the exception of being very careful when removing the old piece. This glass can develop very sharp edges where it's fractured and broken, and so take a lot of care when you're removing broken glass from the door. Before we wrap up, I'll just give you a few tips on how to clean and maintain the finish of your stove door. It will be different depending on the door style that you have. If you have a pewter door like this, you'll just want to take the maroon colored or perhaps green colored Scotch Brite pad and carefully buff that in the same direction that the brush marks go with the door, which is always this direction. Just a little bit here and there, and pay attention to the spots that maybe are stained from glass cleaner overspray or perhaps touched it with a glove. This will take those spots right off, and you can have a pewter door looking almost brand new in no time at all. If you have a gold colored door, that's a very, very polished finish, and you don't want to use any kind of cleaner on that besides basic cleaners, Windex, any kind of mild household cleaner would be fine. And use paper towels. Don't use old t-shirts or dishcloths or otherwise that might have dirt particles embedded in it, because that will scratch the finish on the gold. So remember, gold door, Windex, and paper towels. On a black door, there's not much you can do to clean it because the surface is still rough from the casting. To really bring a black door up to new finish, you'll need to hit it with a little bit of high temperature stove paint. Well, that brings us to the end of today's video. We thank you for watching. I hope that you've learned something, that you're able to service your Kuma stove door. As always, if you need help, we can be contacted through our website, www.kumastoves.com.